testing. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Jenny, I thought you were going to
Sounds
start
like
to
Verizon commercial.
sing. I thought she was going to start to sing.
You have a request, I could do so.
Okay.
She does take requests.
Let's see. What's that song they sing up at the university right before the football games when they make touchdowns? What's that song?
Don't make her sing
Rise and shout, the Cougars are out.
My ears are burning.
Aye,
No, they're not really burning. Honestly, all my friends are like, dude, you're a bigger BYU fan than you think. I'm like, why do you say that? And it's because I watched all the games. I want to see what the competition's up to, you know?
I love it. Okay, so it's 5 o'clock. Are we good to go? Okay.
I'm checking with Sam right now.
Sam just gave me a thumbs up.
Then we're good to go.
All right. Thank you, board members, for being here. It's Thursday, February 18th, 2021 at 5 o'clock. So welcome. We're here for the purpose of interviewing our third finalist for our superintendent position. I'd like to welcome all the board members here. And we'll have our student board member Dottie join us shortly. We've also got Superintendent Madden, Business Administrator Kersley, Sam Quantz, which we owe him a huge thank you. Round of applause for making all of these meetings happen over the last 3 days. Thank you so much, Sam. We appreciate all that you've done for us. We've also got Dr. Buendia and Dr. Hall on the call with us. Thank you for being here as well. I'd also like to recognize our association reps. We've got great representation with our associations. We'd like to thank them for their advocacy for our employees. That's Nicole Palmer for SLASA, James Tobler with SLEA, B. Alonzo with Child Nutrition, Ben Rowley with Transportation, Che Olson with Buildings and Grounds, Steve Russo is the SLEOPA president, and Cindy Mills is the board representative for SLEOPA, and we're grateful to them. And welcome to Dottie. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to have you all stand with me and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance. Please repeat. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So again, a quick reminder that as we've participated in these community meetings, parent meetings, interviews of our superintendent finalists, that we really are looking for feedback, input, impressions on the candidates from everybody who's participated in these meetings. You can find that candidate impression form on our district webpage under the tab for the board, as well as under the tab for the superintendent search finalists. Click on that and submit your feedback. We take your community input very, very seriously. And we know that this is an important decision that we're making. So please take the opportunity to provide us that feedback. The third and final interview of candidate for superintendent will take place at 5:15. So we'll go ahead and put this meeting on hold until just a few minutes before 5:15. We'll see you in about 10 minutes. Thank you. Let's start gathering back, board members. We've got a minute and a half before we start the interview. Okay. All right, welcome back, everyone. We're gathered tonight for the purpose of interviewing Dr. Timothy Gadsden. He's one of our finalists for the superintendent position of the Salt Lake City School District. Dr. Gadsden, we, as a board, have about 18 questions for you. We have an hour for this interview. If you want to keep your eyes on board member Organista on the Zoom call, he will help you with timing, just so that you'll know about how much time to spend per question. And the board is going to go around the table and ask you questions, and we have them in front of us. And we're really excited to get to spend the next hour with you. And thank you for the time you've spent all day today with our stakeholder groups. And then you've got a couple hours in front of you tonight with parents and community. So thank you for being here. I'm going to ask you the first question. What are your guiding educational principles and beliefs as you lead a diverse district such as the Salt Lake City School District? Could you reference one or two specific examples of those beliefs and guiding principles in action?
So my first guiding principle is put students first. My second guiding principle is ensure a safe and welcoming environment for staff, students, and families. My third is operate with trust, transparency, and integrity. And fourth is ensure you have, I just lost it. So trust, integrity, and transparency. And fourth is being a good steward of dollars. So as an example of putting students first, we have LGBTQ students in our district. And I believe in being on the ground and listening to what our students are telling us. As a principal, the transformation that I brought about in each of the schools that I led was partnering with students, where students tell you what worked for them, what didn't work, and recommendations for improvement that was needed. But in this particular instance on the ground, and I must say that Salt Lake City School District is ahead of where we are, but being on the ground and talking with our students in my school district, students were upset that they could not be called and recognized by their chosen name versus their government name, the name that they identified with and the name that they preferred. And our district did not have any policies that allowed us to go with preferred names or even document preferred names in our student information system. So as I heard this widely across our district and understood that it was a problem, I worked with students because I believe in empowering students and amplifying their voice. And I worked with students to prepare a presentation for our board as to why this was important to them. And I worked with them to draft policy updates that would allow this. I believe that when students are able to do it for themselves versus others doing it for them, they develop a sense of pride and you build their leadership capacity. And so I
Dr.
afforded our,
Gadsden, your 3 minutes are up. I give you a 1 minute warning. If you could just look at me when I give you the 1 minute warning, but your
okay,
3 minutes are up.
thank you.
As always. Welcome to Salt Lake City.
Thank you.
It's good to see you face to face. And so we appreciate you traveling over here so we can get a chance, to know you and the community to know you as well.
Thank you.
So I have question number 2 for you. What have you learned from navigating the pandemic as an educator leader? What steps would you take to address any hardship and setbacks to students caused by the pandemic?
So what I've learned from the pandemic is that patience is truly a virtue, that change is constant and it comes rapid, and we need to be prepared for that. I've learned that communication must be timely. It must be, oh, sorry, I got an echo. I thought someone was talking. So it must be timely, it must be concise and clear. And school level leaders need that information in order to move forward, that we must be data informed, and that's only one variable. What I also have learned is that we must provide choice to our parents. And so I firmly believe in providing that choice in learning option for our parents, those who want their students remote or those who want their students in the building, because that choice will bring comfort for them and it will ensure that students are able to be productive and learn in the classroom environment. I think by forcing students to come into school and not giving parents that choice if they want to remain in remote learning until we are told that students absolutely have to be back in school creates trauma for our students. And by forcing them into the building, it could manifest behavior that administrators have to deal with. So that choice is extremely important until we're told that all students must be back in person full time.
Thank you.
Welcome, Dr. Gadsden. I was enthralled by your first answer and did not notice that the time had passed either. So thank you for it. I have question number 3. With the history of your past employment in mind, please share your plans for your length of commitment as the Salt Lake City superintendent.
So everything that I've done to this point has been preparing me to be a superintendent. And I make no apologies for the moves that I've made. There are sometimes staying in the same school district, you don't have opportunities to learn and grow and prepare. And so I have aspired to be a superintendent, and I plan to be a superintendent for an extremely long time. I don't believe in leaving a job undone, and there's work to be done here in Salt Lake City. And so I plan to be superintendent if hired in Salt Lake City until you tell me that I need to leave. But I believe in doing work for students to benefit students, and the acknowledgement that you have worked hard, but there's still work to do, sings to my heart because it acknowledges that you want to do your best work for all students, and I want to be a part of that.
Question number 4. How do you see the chain of command operating in a district of this size?
So I believe the chain of command is actually our families and students. They're at the top of the org chart, followed by the board. So families, community members, students should inform the decision making of the board, that is the governing group and represents those people. After that is the superintendent. Superintendent is responsible for staff. I just had a conversation with cabinet today, looking at our infrastructure, looking at our org chart online. We have to assess whether we are really ready to serve our families. And I gave the example of the network director and what that said to me about our organization, because I don't think our schools are networks. And so that word just jumped out to me and what that actually does. And so preparing an org chart that is more responsive and more in tune with student needs is something that we would need to look at. And there's definitely work that could happen here. I talked about recoding staff and reorganizing so that we're able to staff in other positions using dollars that are allowable for some of those staff positions to free up dollars in other areas for FTE so that we could staff curriculum and other areas to be more responsive.
Welcome to Salt Lake, Dr. Gadsden. I have question number 5 for you. How would you organize the district regarding curriculum in a way that maximizes student performance and potential? Do you anticipate making any changes in our organizational structure?
So as I said in my first interview, I think it's important for me to listen and learn. Decisions have been made for a reason. And I'm really about us having an organization, if I'm hired as superintendent, that is responsive to the needs of our students and families. I have already identified some holes in curriculum where I feel there are disparities. I don't understand why some areas are staffed extremely well and other content areas are not. If we say that there are priorities and we want our students to learn, what is the workload that we're putting on those departments that have smaller staff versus the ones that have a large number of staff? And how are we providing responsive professional learning for our teachers so they're able to provide first best instruction? And so not initially and only through advisement of the district after I have an opportunity to listen and learn and see what's working and not working. But I have identified some potential holes and had conversations with cabinet about some of those holes and how collectively as a cabinet that I would not make a unilateral decision, but collectively in cabinet, we would make decisions to better staff each of our areas, including curriculum, to be more responsive.
Welcome, Dr. Gadsden. If there were a conflict between different community groups in the district over a particular issue, how would you resolve it? And please cite examples that you have used.
So I believe in embracing conflict, but then understanding why there's conflict. I'm trained as a mediator, and so I know sometimes the conflict is so big that you can't have both sides in the same room. And so you shuttle between them to really understand what that issue is and even start to try to figure out as a mediator where the middle ground is so that you can help compromise and get everyone to win-win. And so it's extremely important that you take the time, that you're able to bring folks together, that you're able to understand what the conflict is, why there's conflict, and what both sides actually want as a solution, and then helping them to understand that there might need to be some compromise and helping them to work to that compromise. Times that I have done this is actually we had a situation where our parents were demanding that students return to school. Our data did not suggest that we could be back in school, and so it involved my superintendent, the community was kind of at him. And so as a cabinet member and a trained mediator, I was charged with having the parents to come in that wanted students back in school, those who didn't, and the superintendent as a neutral in that, listening to all sides and being able to shuttle between those groups and get to compromise. And that compromise was that the district would be transparent, share that data, and make sure that parents were well informed on when we could return students to school. We committed to that, and that's what we've done.
Thank you, Dr. Gadsden. I have question 7, and just want to let you know that, we planned this big snowstorm for you so you could see what a great winter wonderland it is here in Utah. So glad that you were able to make it here.
Thank you.
So question 7 is, what would you do to increase the percentage of graduates who have demonstrated the social and emotional skills necessary to be successful post-graduation?
And so one of the things I've been instrumental in doing in our district, because of the pandemic, some of our seniors have fallen behind. Our board requires more credits than the state requires for students to graduate. And so I proposed to our superintendent and our board that we waive 2 elective credits so that students that were not passing core courses could be removed from elective classes and focus on core courses. I think the cores are extremely important. We've got to make sure that students pass those core courses to be successful in college and career. The board and superintendent approved that waiver, and it's an end of the year waiver. So it's not something that we announce to families and students. It's a tool that has been granted to counselors to work with students to make sure that students are trying their level best to get through to the end and do what they need to do. But in their back pockets, when they know that students work, they were committed, they did everything they could, and in the end, they fell short. They're able to waive those credits for students. I think that motivates students to continue to work. Students know that there's hope at the end of the tunnel if they do what they need to do. And we can still graduate students that would be successful. I also believe that as a district, as a superintendent, I would have to advocate to our institutions of higher learning and our employers that students are graduating looking a little different. And they're going to need a little bit more support as they go off to college. They're going to need a little bit more support and training as they work. And I've got to advocate that our students are afforded that opportunity so that they are able to graduate and still attend to their college and career goals.
Okay, I have question number 8 for you. Give us 1 or 2 specific ideas of how you would measure your own effectiveness as a superintendent and how the board should evaluate your work.
So 2 ways are based on student achievement. Am I making a difference and helping to narrow the gap for students? And the second is that matrix that is used to determine the health of the district, and that is the percentage of students graduating on time. I think those are 2 strong metrics that I should be held accountable for. And it's work that I have done in previous districts, developing a K-12 comprehensive graduation plan, because graduation readiness does not start in the 4 years that students are in high school. It's our job as a district to make sure that students are ready for on-grade level work each year and are able to be promoted, because that's the only way that we can guarantee on-time graduation for students. So at the elementary, middle, and high school, there are benchmarks and standards that have to be in place to ensure that students transition to middle school and then to high school graduation ready.
Thank you.
Question number 9. As superintendent, How would you delegate authority while you also maintain accountability? Please explain the actions you would take.
So, believe it or not, the way most legislatures have it and job descriptions are written, the superintendent is responsible for everything in the district, even teaching students. So everything in the district is delegated authority from the superintendent. So the work that I have HR doing, the work that I have our curriculum folks doing, that's all delegated from the superintendent. And so I don't believe in micromanaging, but I believe in evaluation for growth. And I believe in making sure that I am clear with staff what my expectations are and that their evaluations are tied to my evaluation so that collectively we are successful and the work is done collaboratively. And so understanding each person's job description and knowing that those are delegated responsibilities from the superintendent, being clear what each person's job is. When I have that orientation meeting, I would explain what the expectations are, what your job description says, and what I'm holding you accountable for. At mid-year, I would progress monitor, see where folks are, having followed up between that mid-year conference with folks to make sure that they're on track and that we're on target, and constantly updating the board on that. And then at the end of the year, giving them honest feedback on whether they met the mark or not, because I know as a board, you're going to do that for me, and their work has contributed in your evaluation of me. So I need to be honest with them because you're going to be honest with me.
So question number 10, how would you ensure your visibility in our district? What would you do specifically?
So I live by a calendar. I live by a calendar. And I believe in burning the midnight oil because after that 1-year-old is asleep, I have to spend time with him. There's still work to be done. And so I have some hours after he goes to sleep that I'm still working. And so it's important that your calendar reflect your priorities. And being visible and being in schools as much as I can is one of those priorities. And so time has to be blocked for that. When there are football games, when there are extracurricular activities at schools, our elementary schools are having their winter conference, all of those things need to be a part of my calendar to ensure that there are not conflicts. And I believe in planning well in advance. So I take the school calendar, I share with my direct reports if there's anything that I need to attend. I need to put all of this on my calendar. If there are any community events that the board is requiring of me, all of that goes on my calendar so that we work it out and I'm where I need to be when I need to be. Visibility is extremely important to me because that's how I know how things are operating on the ground, what we're doing that's impacting students, interacting with families, and showing our students that I am a superintendent that is student focused and student oriented because I'm there for them. And so they would need to see me because I believe seeing is believing.
Thank you, Dr. Gatson. I have question number 11. As superintendent, how would you model best practices in equity and anti-racism work in education? How would you address institutional barriers for students and staff as it relates to equity issues?
And so we were just talking about that today. And I believe a differentiated approach because we have to assess where our schools are in this equity work and then provide district support to move staff forward. I don't believe in a cookie cutter approach or the district controlling where our schools go in this equity journey. And so we have to differentiate that support and guidance that we provide to schools because some schools are going to demonstrate mastery and reach our expectation before others. It's not important to me how quickly people get there, is that they get there. And so I read widely. I constantly reflect and analyze my own bias. I listen to the perspectives of others if they tell me they saw something or or they felt something in what I said. I believe perception is reality, and that I need to reflect on what I did, what actions I took to make people believe something different and take accountability for that and actively implement change. I believe in leading by example. And if I want a respectful environment that's welcoming for all students, it starts with me. It starts with the board, and we've got to create that expectation and model that. So I believe in walking the talk, but definitely relying on the expertise that's in the district, local expertise, and book studies, constant conversation and dialogue is important in the work, and constantly educating myself. I was just talking with the classified group that sometimes there's a belief that just because you're a person of color, you've arrived in this equity work and this diversity and inclusion work, but we all have work to do because it's a continuous journey.
Question 12. What processes do you use to gather feedback on programs or initiatives? Can you give us a recent example of how you gathered feedback, for what purpose, and most importantly, what did you do with the results?
Yes, and so just like there is um, planning by design, I believe in starting with the end in mind. So what is the outcome that we want? And then you work backwards. So you develop the evaluation because you know what you want the outcome to be. So you develop the evaluation first, and then you work backwards in building the program and initiative so that you have a guide and you have matrices by which you're going to evaluate the effectiveness of that. And I say that you do that first. There are some people cheat and they lie with statistics and data because they've implemented and they change the rules during the game and change the matrices by which they're going to evaluate that program. So when you develop that evaluation first and you hold yourself to that standard, you have honesty in the data that is actually collected on whether that program was effective or not. And so I'll tell you, when we implemented our Flex Ed model, it required teachers to teach distance and hybrid students in the same classroom. Teachers were a part of that decision, but we found that it was more work than what was expected. So we held focus groups. I worked with our research and evaluation team, held focus groups with students, parents, and teachers because all were impacted. We gathered that information, looked at what the themes were that came out of that data, and we were able to implement meaningful change based on the recommendations that came out of that work that has improved our delivery of instruction for our students.
Okay, Dr. Gadsden, I have the next question. It's, what steps have you taken to mentor and supervise members of your administrative team? Please provide specific examples of what you have found works best.
So what I do again is lead by example. I actually make sure that I'm a model of what I want to see in others. I have coaching conversations. I pair students up, I pair leaders and others up with the job to which they're aspiring so that they can have serious conversation and really understand if that's something that they really want to do. I develop succession plans. Succession planning is extremely important to me because you start identifying people for the jobs. And as an example, coming in as superintendent, it would be my job to start looking for the next superintendent in the district and training that person to replace me. That is my responsibility. I believe in preparing the next generation leaders, and so I serve as an adjunct professor at the University of Minnesota, teaching aspiring leaders. And that's another way that I lend my expertise and want to help grow next level leaders. I have implemented an aspiring principals and assistant principal program, and I constantly facilitate those sessions because I want to grow our district leaders and prepare those who are going to move up in the ranks as principals and APs. And so that's some of the work that I'm currently doing in my district, teaching at the U and leading my aspiring principals and assistant principal program in the district.
Dr. Gadsden, what has been the most stressful situation you have had in your current or previous position? How do you handle personally stressful situations?
So the most stressful situation that I have had to deal with, I would say, is the pandemic. Not just because it's the pandemic, but because of how quickly information changes. And we could communicate to staff and families that we're taking action and this is what we're doing. And by the time the parents and staff have it in hand, the guidance has already changed. And so that's been stressful and that's been frustrating because in our quest to be transparent and be timely in communication, it is sometimes not timely enough because it's changed. And so the way that I've dealt with that is I talk it out and I understand that I'm not the only one that's frustrated. And I find consolation in knowing that my perception is right on and others are as frustrated as I am, and that we work together to find solutions to deal with it. It is what it is. And so we've started sharing with our staff that if there is a change, we will update you as soon as the change comes because it will come. And so we preface every message with that. And it has decreased that stress of having to be correct and be timely and the information changing.
Thank you. All right, you're almost there. Almost. Number 15, think about one or two of the most difficult initiatives that you have implemented in your current position. How did you build consensus around those initiatives? And please give us a specific example.
So one of our initiatives was configuring the way we refer students for alternative education programs. Prior to me arriving in Anoka Hennepin, a student could not attend, be a discipline issue for school, and the academic failure was a result of students not being in school. And they would be referred to alternative ed. And so I shared, if they're not attending in the school that they know, where folks know them, why would transferring them to a new school where no one knows them is going to get them there and is going to help students to be successful? And so I put an end to that practice, and there was pushback. And when I focused on why it made sense, why it benefited students, and what our responsibilities were as educators, those who were pushing back on that understood and accepted it. And so that is one. Also, another is in our district, for some reason, we were tracking students, either they took the career path or the college path. And I believe in career and college. So when I arrived, I established an expectation that we increase the percentage of students participating in our career and technical education programs. There was pushback because there were advanced academic students that wanted to participate in our career programs that had not traditionally been allowed, and principals and counselors argued for why that wasn't a good practice. And I shared why it was, how it benefited students, how it prepared students to make the choice when it came time, as opposed to us making the choice and taking that right away from them. I was able to convince them that it was the right thing to do for students. And so changing the minds of people and the hearts of people is hard work because it's adaptive change, but you've got to stick in there and help people not fall back into past practice. And so that's some of the work that I've been doing in my district, making sure that we focus on students and not fall back into past practice that did not benefit our students.
Thank you.
Thanks for that answer, Dr. Gadsden. This is question 16. How can a superintendent maintain strong support services for the district while facing budget constraints?
So you already have a process in place with your shared governance. And shared governance allows decisions to be made at the school level, understanding the budget constraints, understanding the needs of the staff and students in that building. It inspires innovation and working within those parameters. I think when you provide that autonomy that your shared governance system allows, folks are able to innovate, and they are actually able to work with less. And so I think you already have a system in place in the district to address any fluctuation in dollars, because there are never enough dollars for educators. But when you establish those parameters and you allow collective decision making as you have your governance system, you work through that.
Okay, so my pretty much almost the last question, 17. Why should we hire you to be our next superintendent? And
So
you answered the other questions pretty fast, so you do have some
excellent.
time to answer this. Okay.
I was a little scared of you coming back.
Yeah, I know, but you have good amount of time.
Thank you. So most candidates will tell you about what they've done in other districts and why that qualifies them as a fit. I think that devalues the uniqueness of Salt Lake City for me to do that. And so what I'm going to do is focus on my attributes and allow you to determine whether I'll be a fit. I'm a collaborative leader. I put students first. I believe in building healthy families, because when we build healthy families, we build healthy students. I believe that trauma is real and that re-traumatization is real. And that when students are dealing with trauma in our classrooms and it goes untreated, behaviors manifest that we have to address, and they can't attend to the learning in class. And so I'm cognizant of that and work to put programs in place to address that. Students graduating on time is extremely important to me. Inclusive environments are important to me. I believe in shared governance and the innovation that it inspires. I believe that we have a collective responsibility to treat all students and staff respectfully. I feel that we have a responsibility to be respectful to one another. I'm a good steward of dollars. And I believe anytime you ask your community for more dollars, if they see that you have not been a good steward of dollars, it impacts their willingness to give you more dollars. And so I am very fiscally prudent with our taxpayers' dollars. And I stretch a dollar as far as I can take that dollar. I believe in the importance of formative assessment and a robust data system to be able to inform teachers of student performance and allow teachers to be able to make adjustments in that performance. I believe that as a district, we must have an infrastructure that is responsive to our students and one that suggests that our dollars and our belief is that students are the priority of the district. I believe in equity and anti-racism. I believe in working as a team. I believe in the separation of the superintendent and the board's responsibilities, governance versus management. I don't think you would ever be able to hire anyone that's going to work as hard as I am, anyone who is as effective as I am in building relationships, trust, and transparency, um, and someone who sees every day as an opportunity to do things better than we did the day before. Someone who truly believes that students are our future, and it's our responsibility to prepare them for jobs that have not been named or identified, and for them to take leadership roles and be able to take care of us when we can't take care of ourselves anymore. And if that's a superintendent that you're looking for, those are the qualities that I possess, and that means I would be a fit for this job.
Well, thank you so much for being with us tonight, Dr. Gadsden. We've really appreciated the time that we've had with you
Thank you.
and your thoughtful answers to our questions. One more question. It's actually
Yes, ma'am.
to turn the time to you to
Yes.
ask you if you've got questions for us. I don't want to take the focus off of the answers you've given us and the time we've spent with you, but if you've got questions for us that would be helpful to you,
Yes.
now's your time to ask them of us.
Yes. So the first question I have is, what is your timeline for identifying and notifying the candidate that will be your next superintendent?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we are, as you know, because you've been a part of it today, taking quite a bit of time to do some extensive community engagement with these interviews. And through Ray and Associates are gathering feedback,
Yes, ma'am.
which the board will meet on Saturday at 11 to review that feedback. We do take it very seriously what our community wants in our new superintendent, but we know it's our decision, and it's one of the most important decisions that we make.
Yes.
We're hopeful that in the next week or so we'll be able to make that announcement of our finalist for superintendent.
The next question I have, what would transition look like for the incoming superintendent?
So we have a really great superintendent in interim superintendent Madden. We have a few months, I think, identifying our superintendent finalist soon provides some good time for transition. That's something that we would want to work with our finalist and the board and come up with a plan, because there's lots of decisions to be made, lots of important things that we have on our plate, and we don't want any gaps in how our students are being served. So that's something that we're really open to negotiating some really solid transition time
Right.
before July 1st.
And so the next question that I will ask is, what is the board's position on this equity, diversity, and inclusion work that's being done in the district? And that's important because I have colleagues who have become superintendents, and boards say that's what they want and that's what they stand for. And when the superintendents have felt they were doing the work of the board, the rug was kind of pulled from under them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to let my colleagues speak as well for a minute, since we have a few minutes, but I will just say that this is work that this board's committed to. Every student in our district is important to each one of us, and we want to make sure that every student has that access. And the work that we're talking about in terms of anti-racism and equity work is essential to that.
Excellent.
And so I'm going to let my board members speak, but we've done some good work already.
Yes.
working toward that with professional development. There's great things happening. You've had some time to spend today with employees, and you've probably heard about some of that work that's already ongoing. So I'm going to turn the time to my colleagues to share their answers to that question.
Eyes on me, so I'll start. You know, I came to US as a dreamer, to live the American dream. The recent 4 years, unfortunately, kind of like started collapsing that dream, but I'm feeling hope again. And especially when it comes to the issue of education equity, social injustice. If those 4 years had not happened, we will not have had, this opportunity to really have this thing surface up. So when I put myself to run into this office is not just to represent the predominant community, but also to be a voice to the marginalized communities, to be a voice to refugee communities, to be a voice to immigrants, to be a voice to those who life has thrown in challenges in their way. And so, and you can see, if you look here at the board right now, this is the first time in the history of Salt Lake City and the only school board district that has like majority minority. That just like something that speaks the quality of the community that we have and what they are looking for. So rest assured, we're all in it for equity here. We're not gonna let that go.
Okay.
I can share some stuff. It's I'm noticing that I don't have my mask, so people can see my facial expressions a lot more, which is like could be good or bad. But I'm glad you asked this question. This is a very important question. You're asking, what is the position of the board on equity, or is like, where does the board stand on equity, right? In terms of like, not only by word, but by action.
Yes.
So 3 of us just gone on like a month ago. So we are new, as Mohammed was mentioning, but we have our own experiences as people of color. But you nailed it when you said people of color have a lot of work to do when it comes to not only equity, but anti-racism work too. So my bachelor's degree is literally in social justice pedagogy. And then the work I do nationally, being, a consultant on equity, diversity work for companies is very important. But when it comes to education, what I feel as a board member here is, being someone that went through the school district, having experienced lots of institutionalized racism, I just know that there's a lot of work to do, right? And for me, it's not just equity. I think equity is a good start. For me, so what I teach now at the university level is decolonization. Because when you think about systems, how colonization has started everything from white supremacy to ableist, heterocist, patriarchy, right? All those are big theoretical words that just mean that there's a lot of institutional ways people, whether they're people of color, people with disabilities, people that are queer, right, are oppressed. And equity is beyond race. Equity includes socioeconomic status, language, all those different things that you know about. But equity is something that I think this board has to come together to understand from our own experiences that we bring to also what we want to represent from where we're representing in our areas, and so that we are aligned. Because I think we're all new still, that I don't think have a collective united understanding of equity, at least what I feel. But I think that is, as Melissa mentioned, work we are going to do because we are all committed, and I'm so glad that is happening. And that's why the superintendent is going to be key to that work in the future.
The last question that I'll ask is, how receptive are you to working with the superintendent to look at reorging the district?
Could you repeat that? Reorganizing? Is that
Reorganization.
reorging?
Yes,
Yeah.
reorganization of the district, not getting rid of staff, but maybe looking at how staff is placed in the organization and the staffing in the organization to actually meet our expectations.
Can I talk about that, Melissa?
Christy, yes, go ahead.
So Dr. Gadsden, first I would just like to thank you for the questions that you've asked tonight and how centralized you've been on our students, our families, and our employees. I just want to applaud that. I really felt that come through in all of your questions. For me, I think that it's time for us as a district to really dissect and to dismantle and to look at the way that we've been doing things in order for us to progress forward. And so I think that as this board has looked at this process that we're going through right now with a new superintendent, to a certain extent, all of us have been looking for that. You know, saying what are the changes? And I actually loved what you said earlier about if you're going to focus, and I'm just going to give like an example on reading. Do we have enough staff that's in the reading area? And I appreciated you saying that you looked at that and you could see the holes. So for me personally, I'm ready for the work. I think that, you know, we need to be able to look at where are we missing those pieces. And I think our cabinet and our teachers and our principals are also ready, you know, to look at how can we make some changes to keep that focus exactly on what you said on our students. So thank you again for the questions tonight. I think that it really propels, you know, us forward in wanting to really get excited about the opportunities that lay ahead of us. So thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have, Chair Ford.
Okay, well, we've got Board Member Kennedy who wants to make a few comments. Go ahead, Catherine. And
I just wanted to echo what Christy said. I thought she did it perfectly, and say that the only thing I would add is that I'd love for you to consult with our employees to see where they feel like they'd be well placed as you do a reorg. I'd really want to see them have input into their placement. But we have a lot of wonderful people that are doing great things here, and I think that they can be moved to do even greater things. And that sort of returns us back to your the question you asked right before this one, which is that I think that you should know that we do support equity, and I would like to see, ever since I began on this board, the achievement gap solved and closed. But I think that to do that, we have to focus on equity first. We have to think strongly about equity and the equity work that we need to do as we're working on that, or even to work on that. So I think that's really important that we have those students served. And I just want to say that I really love the composition of this board. I completely support this board as a diverse board that brings many perspectives from many different ways. And I think it's a great opportunity for us to demonstrate to our students that diversity works. And then I just would really welcome our student board member to add something if she has anything to add. If she doesn't, that's fine, but she always has really interesting perspectives.
Oh, well, I would just say that, you know, I don't think Salt Lake City School District has, we have a hard decision to make. But I have to say that this board is undoubtedly incredible. You know, I've never met a group of adults so receptive. I don't know if you know, but they supported letting 16 and 17-year-olds vote for their school board members, which is massive. So, you know, wherever you land, this district is a great place to be. And I have had the privilege and opportunity of being a student here in this district. And it's only because of them that I was ever to be here today. So you're going to be in a good place wherever you go.
thank you, Dottie. Jenny, did you want to say anything? Okay, not to put you on the spot. Dr. Gadsden, thank you for the time you've spent with us. Really appreciate the thoughtfulness, and we've enjoyed getting to know a little bit more about you.
Thank you.
We have, you've got 2 more hours in front of you.
Yes,
So we're
ma'am.
going to let you take a little bit of a break, and we'll be back at it at 7 with our community meeting.
Thank
But
you.
thank you, and we'll call this meeting adjourned.